My name is Linda Reed Curtis. I was born in Borger, Texas, October the 12th, 1943.
Now, this interview is by Scott Davis, and this is part of Cane Hill's Oral History Project. And we just want to be sure we have your permission to reuse this interview and to publish the results.
Yes, you have my permission.
Thank you, Linda. Tell me about your parents.
Okay, my dad was Harold Reed. My mother was Hazel Brown Reed. And my mother was raised in Hazel Valley. My father was raised at Clyde.
What about your siblings?
Okay, I have 3 brothers, Harold Leo, Van Jay, and Tommy, and they all 3 live in Lincoln.
Okay. What was your family business growing up? What did your family do?
We were raised on the farm at Clyde, and we had chicken houses and cows and pigs, and then my daddy started driving for Cuddy Hay. My mother was a nurse at the Elizabeth Hospital, so us kids pretty well, took care of things, and they milked cows.
Tell me about your family routines. What did you do at home? What were some of the things that you would have to do to help out around the house?
Well, I did, after my mother started working, I was the cook, cleaning house, washing, and the boys was mostly out taking care of all the chores.
What would y'all do on Sundays? What was your routines on Sundays?
Well, my daddy was mostly gone, but we would go to church and come home.
Did y'all have company over often?
Well, some of my mother's brothers and sisters that lived in Fayetteville, they would come down to see their mom and dad, and they would stop by with their kids.
Okay. Tell me about your earliest memories of coming to Cane Hill.
There was only 4 of us in my class.
So it was going to school?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, going to school started in 1950, first grade. And like I said, we got on the bus and came. And
what was the bus like?
It was great. We liked riding the bus. And coming to school, I do know one thing, and most of the time, most of us didn't have any money, but you were allowed after a certain grade, and I don't know which one it was, to walk down to the store during recess and get some candy. But most of us didn't get to do that a few times, but that was really thinking that we could.
Didn't have the money? Or?
Yeah, we didn't have the money. Most kids didn't have the money, but we could if we had it, or we could just walk down with them. But that was surprising, but we did walk down to the store.
Tell us more about going to school. What was it like? What did you do? What do you remember?
Well, mostly I remember going to school was that we all wanted to ring the bell when it was time to come in. But it got to a point that they didn't let us, and I guess maybe it was dangerous or something, but we wasn't really supposed to touch the bell and ring the bell. We wasn't supposed to go into the jungle that I call the jungle on out, where the sorghum is, where they make the sorghum. Well, back in there, but we would slip in there, me and Gary McClellan and Aquila.
Tell me about some of your classmates and friends at school.
Okay. Well, Aquila Darlington was in my class. And then my double cousin, Gary Brown, and then Gary McClellan. And we just kind of all hung out together. And, of course, Gary McClellan is the one that sent me to the doctor.
What about your teachers? Who were some of your teachers?
I'm sorry, I can't remember right now their names.
Tell me about the stores that you would go to here in town when you were a kid. You mentioned coming down to the store for candy. What stores were here and where would you go?
Well, Shaker Yates, of course, had the store here, but I was at Clyde, so his brother had the Clyde store, and that's mostly where we went to buy groceries. Otherwise, we would go into Lincoln if you could find a parking place in Lincoln at that time, because on Saturdays, the square was full. There wasn't hardly, you know, they had a movie theater and all that, and then they had Tittles merchant, all that, but it was exciting to come to Lincoln, and you couldn't imagine how many people.
What about going to Fayetteville or Stillwell or other
No,
towns?
not really.
Lincoln or Prairie Grove?
It was Lincoln, or just right here at Clyde or Cane Hill.
Okay. Do you remember hearing any of your family members or the old adults talking about the old mill?
Not really, no. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Now, you're familiar with the restoration work that's going on at the college and these buildings here. What do you think about all these restoration projects going on?
Well, I think all the work that's been done on them is great to keep them for generations to come. I'm just glad that everything wasn't tore down and it's just been redone for others to see that can't even imagine.
What would you like to see done with that old college building? Do you not have any plans, or does it make any difference?
It really don't make any difference. I'm just glad it's still there, and the old lunchroom is still there. And
you've been real active over the years helping with the festival. Tell me about that. What has been your role, and why have you done that?
Okay.
The Cane Hill Harvest Festival.
I think it's a lot of, it just brings back memories in the building and getting to see people and, you know, just walking outside and thinking about, like the slide. See, all we had when I went to school there for a while was the merry-go-round. We didn't have swings, we didn't have the slide. So we really ran around and played cowboys and Indians and got on the merry-go-round. And when they got the slide there in the last few years I was there, none of us had ever been on a slide, and it was wonderful.
Talking about having fun, what did the kids do back in your day when you were a kid around here? What did they do for fun? Really, we just... to have fun, we just kind of got out together. We'd even wrestle. I remember me and Janie wrestling, and like I said, playing with the boys and girls played together, and we just played cowboys and Indians or played hide and seek. And you know, we wasn't to go down to the spring either on the Cane Hill grounds. So we'd slip down there and look at that spring, but we wasn't supposed to be down there. And of course, I told you about my cut on my leg. Tell me again.
Okay, me and Gary McClellan, and Gary Brown, and Aquila was playing cowboys and Indians. And I was running across the field right in front of the lunchroom. And at that time, the cooks had put the cans in those big old cans out, and the lids they had cut completely off. So Gary picked up one of the lids, it was his bullet, and he threw it at me, and it sliced me across the leg. And what was interesting, of course, he saw the blood coming out. He ran to the outdoor boys' bathroom and hid, was scared to death, and they took me up to Dr. Boyer's, and I've still got the stitches that Dr. Boyer put in, but it was fun. We'd tease him later, and he didn't want to hear about it. But after that, I don't know of anybody picking up the lids off of the cans to throw.
What would adults do for fun back in those days?
Play cards, mostly. The adults would get together and play cards is what they mostly did. And I do remember our first TV, when we got it, the neighbors came up and we watched wrestling. That was the most interesting thing that we saw on TV.
Do you know what year that would have been, or about what year?
I'm going to say that was probably in the late 50s. It'd have to be the late 50s, maybe the early 60s.
Let's see. What else can you think about Cane Hill that maybe I haven't thought to ask you about? Is there other stories you remember, or just some interesting, funny things you might think of? Mm-hmm. Stories about people or places or events?
Right off, I can't think of much about what went on, but you've probably been told this before, but when I was in school up here at Cane Hill, we'd all stand at the bottom of the stairs. We were not to go up the stairs. We did not have classes up there. And that was one of the biggest things when a teacher wasn't looking, sneaking up there, kind of glancing around and coming back down. But
what was up there? Just the auditorium?
Just the auditorium and really a little office there with books and stuff in the room. But we could only go upstairs if the teacher took us up there that something was going to happen on the stage. And we got to go up there at that time if they was putting on a play. But otherwise, there was no classes up there. And, you know, I think amazing as I look back was how did a teacher in one room, seats would be all first, the next and second graders, third, fourth. She had to teach that many grades in one room.
What was it like as being a student?
It was great, because to be a student, it was really great because the teacher, and I feel for them, they would teach one row, then they'd go to the next one, and so you could break. You didn't have to listen to say if I was a first grader, all right, teach us for a while, go the second graders, and we didn't have to listen to what they were learning. We should have. And then the third and the fourth, I think there was 4 grades in that one room.
Do you remember the teacher?
No, I can't think of that name.
What other stories of maybe memories of things you may have done as a kid or a young adult in the community?
Well, getting our first bicycle, riding up and down the dirt roads. As a kid, that was exciting. Like I had 3 brothers, so we had to share a bicycle. But that was one of the greatest things, you know, finally to get a bicycle. And when you lived out in the country and your folks worked, it was more or less you stayed on the place.
You mentioned earlier that your dad worked out and that your mom eventually got a job working out, so it was just the kids there working?
Yes,
what was
later.
That like? I mean, could you just goof off and do nothing, or did you really have to get chores done or else?
Yes, we had to get chores done, just like the boys had to have the milking done. The milk truck driver came by and picked it up, so you had to have that done. Yeah, back then you milked the cow, and then you had to, and it wasn't in the chicken houses, it wasn't automatic. You had to go through, and we had a 2-story chicken house too. So, you know, you had to go and dump the feed out and make sure they had water, and so the boys worked hard. They really worked hard.